July 9th, 2019, regular meeting of the Town Council Committee of the Whole. All councilors are present. Calendar and communications. Councilor Baumgartner.
Nothing to report.
Councilor Parker.
Just the parade, which was well attended, and I had a blast. So, and thanks to everyone who sprayed us with water, because that helped really well.
Councilor
Yeah,
Franco.
I attended the parade. It was nice.
The parade was incredible, and we didn't run out of candy.
Do you want to come back to?
No.
Okay, good.
Glad for that.
Councilor Over.
I'll ride in the back of a Mercedes anytime. It was a lot of fun. It was very kind of our driver to come over from the Mercedes dealer in New London. Also, I saw a really great presentation on the Fitch robotic team today. And I spoke with them about talking with our manager and our mayor about having them come in and do the presentation for us here. It's excellent, and I think, and it also shows the work that they're doing with all the different schools before the kids come into high school. So I think it'd be very interesting for us.
Next, Councilor Atwater.
I attended the parade. No
Councilor
report.
Schmidt. Councilor Zafari.
As most of you know, I was absent for the town council meeting last week. My wife and I took a mini vacation and we went to Maine. And we told our children we were going to Maine, and our youngest, the 44-year-old, said, while you're there, I want you to get me a Whoopie Pies t-shirt. So Whoopie Pies, what do you mean? Well, he says a baseball team. Well, it turns out that Portland, Maine has a AA baseball team in the Red Sox system called the Portland Sea Dogs. And the Sea Dogs, one game a year, play as the Whoopie Pies. Now, David will know that the Whoopie Pies in Maine is a famous pastry, which is...
They're excellent.
But at any rate, and so the Whoopie Pies t-shirt has an angry Whoopie Pie with a ball cap and a baseball bat over his hand. And we went out, the first day in Maine, of course, we made our pilgrimage to Freeport, but then the next day we went through the streets from shop to shop, t-shirt shop to t-shirt shop, looking for Whoopie Pies t-shirts. And we didn't find any. But in one of those shops, I found something that I liked very much. And that is this. Now, isn't it lovely?
Oh, sure would look great
And
on
so
you.
I said, what am I going to do with that? I can't wear it. So my granddaughter's having a birthday coming up next month, so we bought it for her, and of course we had to get a little top for it. And none of these things that I'm telling you now have anything to, by the way, we did get the Whoopie Pies t-shirts the next day at the ballpark. None of these things have anything to do with anything the town is interested in. But when we were cashing out, they said, do you want a bag? And I said, I suppose I'm going to have to spend an extra nickel for it. And they said, oh no, not for this bag. This is the bag. This bag is made from kelp. It's totally biodegradable. I'm going to hand it down. I mean, this is almost as good as having bottles of water with stuff that you stick into them, you know. But at any rate, it's made from kelp, and I've learned that not only can you get bags made from kelp, you can get bags like that that are made from corn syrup. So ingenuity has provided a solution to one of our problems. But I think, you know, I didn't have to pay a nickel. Maine has had, for 3 years, has had a system in place where you had to pay a nickel for a plastic bag. We're going to a dime, but Maine's had it for 3 years when a nickel was really worth something. Now we're going to have a dime next month, and then we're going to do away with plastic bags altogether in another couple of years. The thing I'm pointing out is, well, I'll tell you about another part of this trip, is we had dinner in a restaurant, and we sat by a window. And while we were sitting by a window, it started to rain. And the raindrops were large enough so that you could see them individually falling and splatting on the pavement. And each raindrop itself didn't make a bit of difference. But as the rain became more intense, the pavement was covered with water. And of course, some of our towns in the West have had massive flooding from these raindrops that accumulate. And the relevance to what we're talking about for pollution with plastic is the problem, although on a national scale, is based on individual use of specific products. And we have to address each of those raindrops, each person that's dropping a plastic bag into the waste stream. And what we have to do is, the only way I think we can do this is by an educational system, and that should start right here. We should educate the public about the importance of cutting down the waste plastic stream. So, yeah, I've got to put the
Thank you
dress
very
back
much.
in there.
Well, thank you for bringing, now I understand what you meant by your show and tell.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You and Keith should do your own show.
Councilor Parker had to step out for a family emergency. She's going to try to make it back for the rest of the meeting, so we are down to 8 councilors at this point. You all received the invitation to the Coast Guard event that I emailed to you. I sent you the email from the gentleman who's interested in possibly staging an air show in town. We're going to be looking into that a little bit further, see if it's something feasible. We had the first working group of the excess school property committee, and we are going to be meeting again to discuss a timeline that the manager and the planning director put together. And once we have a final product, well, a draft product, we'll bring it back for everybody to take a look at and go from there. But we are making progress on that. And today, Lisa Tepper Bates was down from the governor's office to talk about housing and transit-oriented development. So she offered assistance if we need anything as far as working on our meeting the housing needs, kind of in line with the JLUS study, the working group that you are on. All right, thank you.
This month.
Great. Okay, approval of minutes. Councilor Baumgartner.
I'll make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole special meeting minutes of June 25th, 2019. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved by Baumgartner, seconded by Saperi. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Councilor Atwater.
Page 4, new business, 5A, the second line. It's the Southeastern Connecticut Regional Resources Recovery Authority, not the Resource Recovery Resources Authority. The third line in the second
Oh,
paragraph.
okay, I see where you are. So this, all right, I gotcha. Okay, anything else? All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approval of 2019-463, June 25th Cow special meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously with 8 councilors present. So we are on to item 5A, 2019-466, Complete Count Census Committee. And there isn't a motion, but I'd like to introduce our guest this evening, Ms. Eva Bennell from the United States Census Bureau. And she has with her Albert Colon, who is an alternate on our ethics, or will be an alternate on our ethics commission. Albert is here as a translator. Ms. Bennell is going to present a brief summary of the efforts that the Census Bureau is hoping that our municipality will take up. So, please.
Mayor Granatowski, distinguished members of the Town Council, and special guests. I want to thank you for allowing me the time to come before you and have a discussion about an upcoming national event, the 2020 Census. As the mayor shared, my name is Eva Bennell. I'm a partnership specialist out of the New York Regional Census Center. And while our office covers the census areas of New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Puerto Rico, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, I live in Waterford, and I serve as the Bureau's partnership specialist for Eastern and Southeastern Connecticut, and am the Bureau's congressional and tribal liaison as well. For those of you who are familiar with the Census Bureau, and for those of you who are not, the Bureau is the largest provider of quality data about the nation's people, its places, and its economy. Maybe just that part. The Bureau is the nation's largest provider of the nation's people.
Este bureau es algo que es el más grande para la nación, para nuestra nación en esta área.
On any given day in the United States,
En cualquier día en el Estados Unidos,
There are Census Bureau employees out in the field or in an office conducting one of our more than 130 surveys and programs.
Hay empleados del census que salen a hacer esto, que es como 130 empleados.
You're probably familiar with some of them. Our Census of Government, that takes place every 5 years, and years ending in 2 and 7.
Tal vez ustedes conocen algunos que van y hacen esto, que es del año 2 y 7.
The American Community Survey, which is an ongoing survey of about 500,000 households every year.
El Comunidad de los Americanos, que hacen esto cada 3 o 4 años.
And coming up, our nation's largest peacetime operation or mobilization, the 2020 census.
Y que viene, que es el más grande, que es el del año 2020.
I am here as a partnership specialist to engage you as a partner in helping to ensure that Groton realizes a complete count for the 2020 census.
Yo vengo como un especialista para asegurarse que Groton hace este census completamente.
So we need your help in sharing information about the 2020 census. Our goal is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place.
So necesitamos su ayuda para poder averiguar que todas las personas están contadas y que todos están en un lugar.
With your help, we can overcome the challenges that we know we will face in helping people to feel comfortable and self-responding.
Con su ayuda podemos hacer esto y asegurarse que todo el mundo está apoyando y ayudando en esto.
We hope to engage you in partnership to educate those living in our hardest to count communities in Groton.
Y también esperamos que puedan ayudar para que podamos educar a las personas que están en Groton específicamente.
Sharing the message that the 2020 census is coming,
Y compartiendo el mensaje de que el census del 2020 ya viene,
that it's safe, easy, and important.
que es seguro, fácil y es muy importante.
And while the 2020 census is a national event, it will only be successful if we work on a local level to engage everyone.
Y aunque esto es algo nacional, puede servir mejor si todo el mundo puede apoyar en esto.
The 2020 census is safe.
El 2020 census es muy seguro.
Title 13 of United States Federal Code protects all information we take in through any of our surveys.
Título 13 protege a todas las personas que comparten esta información para este servicio.
What does that mean?
¿Qué esto significa?
It means that we cannot share any information
Significa que nosotros no podemos compartir ninguna información
with any federal, state, or local agency or individual,
con ninguna agencia que es federal, del estado o que es algo local,
law enforcement officials, including ICE,
con cualquier tipo de policía, también incluyendo a ICE,
or courts of any level, at any level.
o cualquier corte de cualquier nivel.
We can never share. Federal law prohibits us from sharing any information that identifies a person or a household.
No podemos compartir ninguna información que nosotros tenemos sobre cualquier casa.
In addition, every Census Bureau employee swears an oath for life
Hasta cada persona que trabaja para nuestra agencia toma un compromiso
that we will never share information that identifies a person or a household,
que nunca vamos a compartir ninguna información que es de cualquier persona o de cualquier casa,
even after we leave federal service.
hasta después que nosotros terminamos nuestro servicio.
If we did, we face up to 5 years in prison and or a $250,000 fine.
Si nosotros compartimos cualquier información, podemos a tener 5 años en el cárcel o hasta $250,000 que nosotros tenemos que pagar.
We take privacy and confidentiality very seriously.
Nosotros cogemos la privacidad lo cogemos en serio.
In addition, we employ the very latest high-tech cybersecurity methods to protect the data that we take in.
Hasta nosotros tenemos mucha protección también en nuestra cosa de internet que usamos. Nosotros tenemos mucha protección en eso también.
We use something called differential privacy to protect our data tables.
Usamos algo que se llama privacidad diferencial que protege toda esta información.
We introduce statistical noise into our data tables. The smaller the data table, the larger amount of statistical noise we introduce into it.
Y la más información que nosotros tenemos en nuestra computadora es la más cosa que nosotros ponemos para proteger.
So it's important for people to understand that we take information in, we secure it, we put it behind firewalls.
Es muy importante que nosotros ponemos toda esta información, que nosotros lo aseguramos y también lo ponemos en una protección.
We separate the counts from the personal identifiable information.
Separamos lo que nosotros contamos con la información personal.
We aggregate the numbers and we produce statistical products only.
Y nosotros cogemos esos números y solamente cogemos para hacer cosas,
Data.
para
Products.
coger información.
So the census is safe.
So esto es seguro.
The census is easy.
Es muy fácil.
There'll be 4 ways to respond next year, and we will begin asking people to respond March 12th.
Vas a ver 4 maneras de que pueden responder y le vamos a pedir el 12 de marzo que pueden comenzar a responder.
For the first time, people will have the opportunity to respond online
Para la primera vez van a tener la oportunidad para responder en el internet
and then also by toll-free number.
y también por teléfono.
Both of those options will have 12 non-English language options available to them.
Las dos opciones también vas a tener 12 idiomas que pueden usar.
So for instance, if someone speaks Mandarin
So, por ejemplo, si alguien habla mandarín
and they go online or they call the toll-free number,
y si van en el internet o llaman por el teléfono,
they can respond in Mandarin.
pueden responder en mandarín.
In addition, we will have 59 non-English language guides available in video and in print.
Hasta nosotros también vamos a tener a 59 más idiomas que se va a poder ver en video o hasta imprimido.
For additional languages that aren't covered in those options,
Para adicionar lenguaje que no está cubierto en esas opciones,
we are hiring locally those individuals who speak the language of the community.
estamos consiguiendo personas que pueden ayudar específicamente en esa comunidad.
And I will share more information about the jobs that we will be offering in a moment.
Y voy a compartir más información de los trabajos que vamos a tener después en un momento.
If people have not responded online or by toll-free number,
Si las personas no han respondido en el internet o llamando por el teléfono,
they'll continue to get reminders
van a seguir recibiendo recuerdos
to respond.
para responder.
And then the fourth mailing, we will send them a paper survey.
Y la cuarta vez nosotros le vamos a mandar algo por el correo.
So there are people we understand who are traditionalists who do like to respond in writing, and they will have that option.
Nosotros sabemos que hay personas que les gustan escribir, so van a tener esa opción también para responder por carta.
And finally, in late April, if they still have not responded,
Y finalmente, si no han respondido antes de abril,
we will send out, this is our most expensive option, where we plan on hiring 500,000 enumerators nationally to go and knock on doors.
nosotros vamos a conseguir más de 500,000 empleados que van a ir a tocar a las puertas,
Asking people to respond to the survey
pidiéndoles a la persona que pueden contestar a esto
and providing the very same information they could provide online by toll-free number or in writing.
para ello poder replicar a las respuestas que se preguntan en el internet, en el teléfono o escrito.
And for those enumerator positions, we are currently hiring and asking people to go online and apply at
Y para las personas que también para las cosas de números,
2020census.gov
le pedimos que pueden ir a 2020census.gobernante,
/jobs.
@jobs.
Those jobs in this area we're currently offering $21 an hour. They're part-time positions.
Para esta posición les estamos ofreciendo $21 a la hora.
We're also asking people to apply for our address canvassing positions that are going to be for our address canvassing events that will be taking place throughout the summer.
Y también le estamos pidiendo a las personas que sí pueden ayudar también en las cosas en el verano que nosotros vamos también a tomar.
There's information in your folders and on the back table regarding those jobs.
Hay información en sus cuadernos.
So the census is easy.
So, el census es muy fácil.
The 2020 census is important.
El 2020 census es importante
As most of you know, the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, mandates a complete count of the nation's inhabitants.
Como ustedes saben, en la Constitución de los Estados Unidos, en el artículo 1, sección 2, pide que nosotros hacemos esto
Every 10 years.
cada 10 años.
We've been doing that since 1790.
Estamos haciendo eso desde el 1790.
At that time, we counted a population, a national population, roughly the size of Connecticut today.
En ese año nosotros teníamos una población que era el tamaño de Connecticut.
For the 2020 census, we anticipate we will be counting across the nation roughly 330 million people living in 140 million household units. We will be counting 330 million
Nosotros vamos a estar contando 330 millones
in 140 million household units.
en 400,000 casas.
The 2020 census, the decennial census, is important. It is at the core of our democracy.
Este census es el centro de nuestra democracia.
Decennial census data determines the apportionment of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Esta información también se usa para poder decidir cuántos asientos que tenemos en la Casa de Representantes
That a state receives. Sorry.
que el Estado recibe.
It also determines the boundaries of our state's legislative, voting precincts, and school districts.
También se decide las escuelas, también decides los votos que se usan para seleccionar.
Decennial data also determines the federal allocation of the roughly $675 billion that gets allocated to states on a yearly basis.
Esta información también se usa para decidir todo este dinero, que son 6 billones de dólares que se usa para ayudar a los estados.
It also helps federal, state, and local officials and tribal officials
También ayuda a los oficiales federal, del estado, local y también de los tribus
plan for important services
para planificar para servicios importantes
and identify appropriate policies.
y para poder identificar importantes leyes.
The $675 billion that gets allocated to states
Los 675 billones de dólares que se dan para los estados
are for those programs that are most important to our communities.
son para los programas que están muy importantes a nuestras comunidades.
And we predict there will be areas in Groton that will be hard to count.
Y sabemos que va a haber áreas en Groton que van a ser muy difícil para contar.
The programs that serve these individuals include
Los programas que usan estas comunidades son
public education,
educación pública,
community block grants,
cosas de comunidades,
Pell grants,
ayuda también para ayudar,
all of our most important nutritional programs,
la programas nutricional,
WIC,
el WIC,
SNAP,
la programa SNAP,
Meals on Wheels,
los programas que son para comidas en gomas
free school lunch programs,
y también para los almuerzos para los niños,
Medicaid,
Medicaid,
federally qualified health centers,
también para los centros de salud,
Section 8 housing vouchers,
para las ayudas de sección 8,
transportation infrastructure improvements.
para ayudar la transportación también.
You kind of get the picture.
Ustedes ven en la imagen.
So our most important programs depend on our communities getting accurate counts for the decennial census.
Nuestros programas ayudan bastante para las cosas de comunidades también.
We need to count everyone
Necesitamos contar a todos
because every dollar counts.
porque cada dólar cuenta.
If we are not counting everyone,
Si no contamos a cada persona,
those programs are not receiving the appropriate level of funding from the
La-
federal government.
los programas no están recibiendo después la apropiada ayuda que necesita del gobernante.
What we get for a count,
Que nosotros recibimos de una cuenta,
we live with for the next 10 years.
vivimos para el próximo 10 años.
So the 2020 census is important.
Por esa razón, el 2020 census es muy importante.
So again, we know that there will be challenges
Sabemos que van a haber algunas situaciones
in counting the population
en contando la población
in certain areas.
en algunas áreas.
We need your trusted voices sharing accurate information.
Necesitamos su voz que pueda darnos la información correcta.
As you know, the Lieutenant Governor has created a state complete count committee.
Como sabemos, La segunda, agobiada, has hecho cosas para ayudar a las comunidades.
She's engaged about 50 statewide organizations that are trusted voices.
Ella ha hecho 50 organizaciones que han salido para poder ayudar a escuchar las voces.
And the goal of the Bureau and of the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor
Y nuestro punto, y también el punto del agobiado,
is to have a complete count committee in all 169 towns throughout the state.
es para poder a tener esto correcto de los 169 ciudades que hay en el estado.
This is, if anyone's ever been to census.gov, our website,
Si alguien ha ido a nuestra página de internet,
we have an interactive tool, mapping tool that we share with our partners.
tenemos un herramienta que nosotros usamos.
Anyone can go to the website and type in ROAM.
Cualquier persona lo puede usar y a poner ROAM.
It stands for Response Outreach Area Mapper.
Significa responder a las áreas de la mapa.
So right now, what you're looking at is the census tract that 134 Long Point Road, Groton falls into.
So ahora mismo ustedes están viendo lo que el 134 Long Point Road en Groton es.
And to give you an idea of what we're looking at in terms of hard-to-count areas,
Y para darte una idea de lo que nosotros estamos viendo para las áreas que son muy difíciles,
if you go to the Rome mapper on census.gov,
si ustedes ven a esta mapa que está en la página,
you can pull up a map of the United States.
pueden ver una mapa del Estados Unidos.
There'll be varying shades of blue.
Van a ver muchas áreas que son azul.
The deeper the blue, the higher the low response score.
El más profundo que es el azul, eso significa lo menos personas que están contados.
The low response score is assigned by the Bureau. It's what we predict will be the percentage of people who will not self-respond in the 2020 census.
Esas áreas que ustedes están viendo son las áreas que nosotros pensamos que menos gente van a responder en.
So, for instance, in this census tract, we predict that more than 25% of the people who live in this area, roughly 4,300 people,
So, por ejemplo, nosotros pensamos que que el 25% de las personas que viven ahí, que son 43,000 personas,
will not self-respond.
no van a responder solo.
So we're working with, again, towns,
So, estamos trabajando con las ciudades,
faith-based organizations,
organizaciones de fe,
community-based organizations,
organizaciones de comunidades,
also librarians,
también con las librerías,
to help us provide outreach to those communities to make sure they understand the census is safe, easy, and important.
para poder a compartir la palabra que esto es muy importante y es muy seguro para hacer.
If we back out and we look at Groton,
Si nosotros salimos hasta la parte de atrás y vemos a Groton,
that deep shade of blue over in the left-hand corner,
toda esa área azul en esa esquina,
we predict that the low response score is close to 33%.
pensamos que el porcentaje de la gente que no respondan es 33%.
That's an overall bird's eye view of the operational plan for the 2020 census. We are presently in the establish where to count and motivate people to respond part of the operational plan.
Esta es la imagen de que nosotros estamos viendo de 2020, de lo que nosotros pensamos hacer.
Again, by March 12th of next year, we will begin asking people to respond to the survey.
Antes del 12 de marzo del próximo año vamos a pedirles a las personas que respondan.
But the important work begins now.
Pero las cosas importantes comienzan ahora.
My job as your partnership specialist is to make your job in providing outreach to your hard-to-count areas
Mi trabajo es para ayudarles a ustedes a poder contarle a las personas que están en las áreas que son difíciles,
easy.
fácil.
So again, we've been hiring partnership specialists,
So, tenemos a personas que nosotros estamos pagando,
forming complete count committees.
estamos haciendo comunidades para contar.
This summer, we're opening 3 area census offices.
Este verano nosotros vamos a abrir 3 oficinas para ayudar.
These are not public-facing offices. They serve administrative purposes only.
Esto solamente sirve para cosas administrativas.
Early in January of 2020, we'll begin a massive outreach and media campaign.
En enero de 2020 nosotros vamos a hacer una campaña.
By the end of next year, the survey closes on July 31st, 2020.
En el 31 de julio de 2020 ya esto va a cerrar.
By December 31st, we deliver the apportionment count to the president,
Para el 31 de diciembre nosotros les damos una cuenta al presidente
and the redistricting counts to states by early spring of 2021.
y las líneas del estado se comienzan a cambiar en 2021.
In your folders, in the very back on the left-hand side, is more information about what complete count committees are. Again, we ask, just that if you can talk about the 2020 census at meetings, provide updates. Many towns are forming formal complete count committees are in the area, and they're including librarians, again, health centers, schools, superintendents, early childhood program staff, etc. But there is information in your folders. Sorry.
Nosotros pusimos alguna información a la parte de atrás de los folders. Todo esto es para poder ayudar a las personas y para poder ayudar a las cosas de comunidades como las escuelas públicas, todos los almuerzos, todas estas cosas.
And again, our job is to make the job of providing outreach to your community easy.
Y nuestro trabajo es para poder ayudarles a ustedes a poder contar a estas personas fácil.
We will provide you hard copy materials to share with people in the community,
Vamos a darles papeles para que ustedes puedan compartir adentro de la comunidad.
digital materials and our census logo.
Material digital y también con nuestro logo.
I will come and present before any organization.
Yo estoy dispuesto para poder presentarme delante de cualquier organización.
Invite us to man an informational table at any events you may be planning.
En cualquier evento o evento informacional.
Again, we are hiring. We have these wonderful part-time positions that we are paying currently in this area, $21 an hour. Again, address canvassers and enumerator positions.
También nosotros ahora mismo estamos buscando a personas que pueden aplicar para este trabajo que se está pagando a 21 a la hora, que es medio tiempo.
People can be successful in part-time workers for the census.
La gente puede ayudar bastante en esto, trabajando para este census.
The hours are flexible. They can work nights or weekends if they already have full-time jobs.
Ahora son flexibles, que significa que usted puede trabajar en el día o en la noche, sí, para las personas que ya tienen trabajo.
Again, the website is listed in the materials that you have and in the back table. We also have we're also looking for people to apply for our full-time positions for the area census offices.
También nosotros estamos buscando personas que pueden ayudar en nuestras oficinas también.
Those are posted on usajobs.gov.
Eso está puesto en la página usajobs.gov.
What we get, we give back, free to the public. We will send our data dissemination specialist out to provide training seminars on our data products and how to use them.
Toda la información que nosotros recibimos los damos para atrás, o vamos a tener personas que pueden ir al público para ayudar a enseñar cómo usar esta información.
Ana Maria Garcia is our data dissemination specialist.
Ana María García es nuestro especialista de información.
And she's helped many organizations use our data table and use it to go after funding, planning, etc.
Y ella ha usado esta información para poder ayudar para los fondos para las personas.
We also encourage our partners to go to census.gov. There's a lot of information about our data products.
También les pedimos a las personas que pueden ir al census.gov para recibir más información en esto.
We ask everyone to connect with us on our social media websites or whatever they're called. I don't have any of those accounts personally. But.
También les pedimos a las personas, si deciden recibir más información, tienen cualquier pregunta, que vaya a nuestra página social.
And contact us. But we're here to make the job easy, to ensure a complete and accurate count for Groton.
Y que se comunique con nosotros, porque nosotros estamos aquí para contar a Groton, para que pueda estar contado bien.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you both. Do any of the counselors have questions for Ms. Bunnell?
I do.
And Counselor Franco and then Baumgartner.
Are you counting homeless people?
We are. We're partnering with many of the organizations, we're beginning to partner with the organizations that serve the homeless population, and that we will be conducting group quarters enumerations in the shelters and also point-in-time kinds of counts where we'll go out a couple of evenings with those organizations that know where these individuals may be living outside.
Okay. And approximately how many questions are on the census?
About eight questions. And in your folder, there is a flyer on why we ask the questions that we ask.
Right.
So it gives a list of those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Baumgartner.
So I know recently the Supreme Court ruled that the census would not be able to explicitly ask the question as to whether or not you are a citizen. For all intents and purposes, as of now, any resident can participate in the census. What reassurances are you giving to folks, especially Latinos, who are very fearful right now that that information, as you had mentioned, could be weaponized against them in the future? So what reassurances can we give, again, the Latino community to ensure that their voice is important and that they can participate without any recourse from?
Counselor, that's a very good question. And again, whether or not the citizenship question is back on the survey or not, that's for the courts to decide. What we're asking our partners to do is to share the information about the laws, Title 13, our cybersecurity methods, again, that we do not share. We are prohibited from sharing any information that identifies a person or a household with anyone. That's most important. And while I'm a federal employee and they may not trust me, and we get that, they will trust you. And, again, the emphasis on how we are prohibited from sharing information is really important. Everyone counts. We are counting everyone in the United States. This is one of the few civic engagement opportunities in our country where everyone is equal. From a minute-old baby who's born on or before Census Day, everyone counts. So we encourage everyone to understand the laws that protect information, and we hope our partners share that information.
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing and for such an important issue.
Thank you
I don't think
very much.
I think we need more opportunities for everyone to hear, and so I think having a translator here to speak probably the second most spoken language in town is incredibly important, so thank you for coming as well.
Thank you. Any other counselors? We have with us this evening representatives of the League of Women Voters who are also going to be doing outreach for the census, and they will be speaking with Ms. Bunnell a little bit later on to see how they can partner together to also advocate for this. And I have a volunteer from the community who is willing at the end of summer to start taking this on, and I know Councilor Atwater, I believe, was interested in working on it. And if there's anybody out there who also wants to participate, please reach out. You can send an email to me or to the manager, and we can put you in touch with the people that will be organizing this. So stay tuned. There will be an event later on in the month that will be publicized, and we're looking forward to making this a successful count. Thank you very much for coming out. Thank you for translating, Albert. Appreciate it. And what we're going to do right now, so that Ms. Bunnell has a chance to put away her laptop, is we're going to recess briefly for probably about 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. We're back from executive session back from recess at 7:23. I'm getting ahead of myself. We are still at 8 counselors. We're on to item 5B, 2019-457, update on excess property redevelopment, 529-517 Gold Star Highway. Counselor Franco, please.
I make a motion for executive session. I hereby move that the members of the Town Council Committee of the Whole, Town Manager John Burr, Assistant Town Manager Bob Sagami, Planning Director John Reiner, Economic Development Manager Paige Bronk, Deb Jones, Assistant Planning Director, Bill Sweeney, and Damon Kalinagi. Okay. Go into executive session pursuant to General Statute Section 1-206D for the discussion of the section of a site or a lease, sale, or purchasing of real estate by the state or a political subdivision of the state concerning purchase and development of 517 and 529 Gold Star Highway properties. I so move.
Moved by Franco and seconded by Heed. All those in favor of going into executive session for the purpose read, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentioned? So moved unanimously. We are in executive session at 7:25. Thank you. Thank you. We are back from executive session at 8:10, and we are on to item 5C, 2019-464 Pequannock Bridge Fire District Update. No action is needed. I see the chief is here, so if the chief and your group would like to come up, please. Thank you. We have 2 microphones, so you'll have to take turns making sure that you speak into the microphone. That way it's captured for the audio. Oh, and Sean's bringing 2 more microphones. Thank you.
Okay.
So if you gentlemen could just introduce yourselves, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Ron Muhoff, president of the district. This is Kevin Marquardt, who's taken over for Alan Ackley as vice president now. We've got the chief, Joe Linsky, and the deputy, Tim Driscoll. I think we just want to clarify a couple things. We're thankful for the pilot money. Of course, it's never enough. And I'm sure it's never enough for you from the state either. I think it used to be a lot more money. There was a lot of talk why we're charging the fees we're charging to the building committee for the new school. We charge the city as well for permits. And I just want to make sure the council understands that we are a separate entity. And for us not to charge the $280,000 for the permits for the school, we have an ordinance that's passed and there are no waivers, would be taking money out of the pockets of the people in our district, because the school is for the town. And so the town needs to spread the burden of that $280,000 throughout the town. And that's why we don't waive the fees. The town doesn't waive any fees for us as well. You know, we paid, I think, almost $30,000 this year to have the taxes collected. We pay $100,000 to the city for the hydrant rentals. We had to pay for our permit when we put the roof on the fire department. So I just want the councilors to be aware that we're not waiving because we want to because we're money hungry. We're waiving because it's the right thing to do. The town buildings should be picked up by the town taxpayer. I mean, we are servicing them buildings when they're built, really for free, because we get no tax revenue, and the pilot money is nowhere near enough for all of the untaxable property we have in our district. So that's the reason we went ahead and charged the fees. We made the ordinance a couple of years ago, not thinking that we were going to create the revenue that we did. We've, generated a lot of revenue for ourselves with the ordinance. And I put off doing it for quite a few years because we're the highest now, that the city is down to 4.3 or whatever. We're the highest mill rate. And I hated to charge people the fees, but we had to do it. We have to generate funds to keep the people in our district and their mill rate down. So it's worked out for us, and I just want to make sure, again, that we're doing it as we feel for the burden should be spread on the whole town or on the city for their stuff. Everybody had asked us for exemptions, and I just am amazed. And I guess the school board, in fairness to them, the building committee didn't really understand it until we explained it to them. that, you know, it's the burden of the whole town to pay them fees. So, the other things we can talk about a little bit, our department is very good shape, I would say. We're going to be looking in the next year or two at another engine, maybe sooner. And we're doing all right. And you know, the reason our mill rate is so high is because we're a fully paid department. And we're doing a lot, you know, we're doing a lot of calls, 2,200 calls a year or whatever the number is. And overall, everybody's pretty happy at this point, you know, as far as in our group. So other issues, you guys want to discuss a little on the open space, or you know, all the land, and Kevin's got some numbers, that goes to open space is a wonderful thing, except when it's in our district, it isn't that wonderful, because we have so much of that. And you know, the new school, there was some land swaps and stuff that affected our district. And at one time, I think there was a development supposed to go in Court Cobra, which didn't go in because that land got swapped off. And me, I'm for getting any development you can in here. And I know it's nice to have some open space, but we have a lot of it, especially in our district. So I just like the council to keep that in mind, that the open space is a wonderful thing, but it takes it off the tax roll. And we need all the taxes that, you know, in our district, because we're a paid department, so we want to get what we can get out of it. And what was it, a tax exemption, Kevin, up on Gold Star, the one you were talking about? Yeah, the one where they're going to give them a tax break or something.
Is that the Senate Ground one?
Yeah, the Senate Ground.
Yeah.
When them are done, we don't want to get stuck like we did in the Marriott deal, where we're not collecting the district taxes. If the town gives a tax break to somebody to come in, we still would want to make sure that we're able to collect our fire district taxes on that, you know, because we are a separate entity, really. And we're doing well because we do try and, you know, hustle everything we can hustle as far as taxes and ways to keep our department solid. Joe, would you like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to back up a little bit to the permit issue and how that all evolved and why it was developed. We weren't the inventor of that ordinance. That ordinance was a boilerplate ordinance that was put together by the Deputy State Fire Marshal's Office and CCM, which pushed that forward. Cities and towns across the state are implementing that because of the cost of the inspectors and the time that they have to spend, and all that burden was falling on the residences of our district. It just doesn't apply to buildings that the town builds, or the city. It applies to all commercial businesses. The jurisdiction of the Fire Marshal's Office is 3-family or more, so when permits are required for those particular buildings, inspections or whatever, there's a fee schedule that was put together. So that's how it evolved to that. And what it does, it takes the burden off the people that live here, and puts it where it would be normally. If you go for a building permit, for those businesses, you're going to pay a permit to the town for those permits. And the calculations are made by percentage, which is based on the fee that would have been charged by the town building official or is being charged. And that's how we come up with those figures. Moving on to the non-taxable properties, 72% of all non-taxable properties in the town of Groton are located within Pequannock Bridge. 52% of Pequannock Bridge is not taxable. So you can understand why that particular area, for us, it creates quite a burden. So we're trying to find creative ways to assist our taxpayers and give them an opportunity to have a more reasonable rate. I think we've done a pretty good job, but we can only do so much. So That way there, at least it gives you a little bit of background on how that works. And Tim, I think you've got some figures and,
Yeah, just really quickly, Town of Groton properties within our fire district take up 2.3 square miles. Since 2016, the town's added 27 acres more to that as untaxable space. It equals out assessed real estate value of over $94 million, and it would be 15.67% of our actual grand list. Taxable income is around $600,187.91, give or take a couple pennies there. If you look at the whole scheme of our district, we miss out on taxable revenue or taxable income from properties of $1,713,000 annually a year. That's property that's within our fire district that we're unable to collect any taxes on at all, out of a $4.5 million budget, $1.7 million. So it is a big amount, and it does create some definite financial burdens on us on why our tax rates are so high.
And we have been lucky because the grand list has went up in our district. There's a lot of development and this kind of thing, you know. Kevin, you got anything else?
Well, I'd just like to say that, you know, I looked it up, and I know 5 of you live in the city. 1 is West Pleasant Valley, and 3 of you in Mystic. And I know it's a little different. When you don't pay it, you don't think about it. But as a taxpayer in Pequannock Bridge, and you see that, and then I have another taxable property in another district, it makes a difference. So, I mean, you know, I know everybody, you represent the whole town, so I'd like you to keep that in mind, you know, maybe address this problem and see if there's anything that can be done about it to even it out a little, because we're, like I said, we're paying 6 in Pequannock Bridge, and like Mystic's paying 2.4 or something like that. And I think Mystic gets garbage collection in theirs too, and we don't get that either. So, you know, in the city, I know they have extra services, and theirs is a little higher. They have garbage collection and things like that too, so.
And just to touch base on the trash pickup, Councilor Franco came to our meeting and we discussed it. We do not want to be in the trash collection business. I know that Mystic got a bid, I think last year it was around $9 a house, which is incredibly cheap. And I don't know how much you've talked about it after the fact, but I mean, if the town wanted to say, we're gonna provide for that district so much and go out and collect the money, you know, we wouldn't have any issue with them saying, we're gonna take the trash collection in that district. But we don't wanna be involved in it. There's just no way we can afford to do it. I know that Waste Management, I think, did Mystic. I don't know if they got renewed or not. Did they get renewed this year?
I don't know if they're renewed. They currently use them.
Yeah, and they were at $9 and something. They probably did go up. And CWP, I think, has got no ink now. But we just can't, you know, as a district, we can't provide that. And it's too bad for the people because it's $30 a month now, just for regular residential trash pickup from C.W. So we just can't do it. And if the town needs to work with us a little to try and, you know, find a way of some suggestions, we'll work with it a little, but we don't want really, as a district, to be in the trash business. We don't want to collect any money. We don't want to take any calls. My trash shouldn't get picked up. You know, it's just more than we can handle. We got enough calls coming in. So
We have no referral, no item on our agenda for townwide trash collection, so you could just rest assured that that's not something that this council is advancing at this point.
no, I just know that it's a public issue. The public has
Correct.
been wanting it.
Correct, but that's between you and the people that live in your particular district to decide if that's something that you would like, and you've stated clearly,
Yeah.
management of the district is not interested, so. I do need to say before we go on any further that we are town councilors. We represent the whole town. We do not represent our individual fire districts. So
Yeah, I
please
understand
keep
that, but I'm
that
just
in
saying,
mind.
my point was, when you're not paying it, it's a little different. You know, you might not think about it, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying you don't represent the whole town. I just want to make sure that you understand.
We do.
you know.
We understand, and we all pay fire district taxes, so thank you very much. Councilor Zepari.
You know, I'm curious, you guys have a fire district and you have fire district taxes. Do you have elected officials that decide what the taxes should be?
We have a board.
Are they elected?
Yeah, and when there's trouble in the department, you get 200 people to come to a meeting and, you know, to vote. And seeing everything's running very smoothly, we struggle to get 15 members to come to vote on the board. And we present a budget every year. And that budget, you know, the board reviews the budget and it gets approved at our annual meeting. And we have 9 members on our board, and we rotate every 3 years. Every year, there's 3 members are re-elected.
Are the board members from the general population, or are they from the fire department?
No, they're from the general population. You have to live in the district to be on the board.
Yeah.
Now, we have had some, before fire-related issues, fire personnel issues on the board. They were from fire departments out of town, but it created a lot of controversy. That's when we had a 3-member board. The 9-member board has seemed to work, and, you know, again, we've turned this department around from where we were 5 or 6 years ago when there was fighting and arguing, and I think we've done a pretty good job with that. And, you know, I think it's good that I wish that all of the departments would come up just to let you counselors know what's going on. Because again, only 15 people show up to our meeting. And if somebody asks you a question, at least on the street or something, you could say, well, the mill rate in Mystic is this, but they're, you know, they don't have a paid department, and, you know, we're paying $400,000 a year for retirement for these guys, and so, you know, there's a lot of expense for us because of the paid department. But I think we're, you know, again, we're doing a good job with the way we have things set up. And so, but anybody's welcome to come and put in an you know, not even an application. We ask if anybody would like to be on the board, or if there's any nominations from the floor at these annual meetings. And, you know, we post them in the paper. And so
it just seems, as you made the presentation about charging the town of Groton for services that you're providing, you're one organization that is part of the town government supported by the people. And this is another organization also. And I understand your thing, well, it's got to be distributed among all of the people. But I just feel that the fire departments are autonomous units, and they make their own decisions about what they're going to do. And they are actually in competition with the town. And it comes out when we have, I don't remember what the charges we're paying for the inspection of the schools. It's about $300,000.
it's $280,000.
Okay.
That's for the new middle school,
Yeah. That's for what?
the new middle school.
Just the middle school. How about for the high school?
Have any when high school is built.
I mean, the new middle school. How about the 2 new elementary schools?
I don't believe they're in our district.
They're not in our fire
Neither
district.
is in Pequannock Bridge.
Yeah. Can I just clarify something, so maybe make it a little bit clearer? The board is a publicly elected board by, just so we understand, when we get to our process of adopting a budget, we have public hearings that are posted at Town Hall, and we put it in the paper, and it's posted on our website with a copy of our budget that's posted on the website, and anybody can come by and pick up a copy. And we go through this very similar process that you would go through here. And then we have an annual public meeting, and we have requirements for minimum number of voters that have to be there. We make sure that every one of them is calculated. They get, they have to be cleared to vote. Not anybody can go in and start voting. So just to clarify that. And
Do you run your own elections?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
it's done by vote at the annual meeting. It's like,
Ballot.
it's by ballot with the residents.
You have a site for the elections?
Yeah, we usually do that at the senior center. And then
You
the
pay
clerk
for
of the
that?
district and also our staff has lists, just like you would when you go to vote, they check off when they come in.
Councilor Baumgartner.
So first and foremost, thank you all for coming out. I've seen firsthand, really, in the last 5 years, what a remarkable turnaround the department has had, in large part to your leadership, and certainly the chief and the deputy chief. So thank you again for your work, and certainly the fire district as well. I absolutely understand your concerns. The fact of the matter is Pequannock Bridge, bar none, is the in total, when you look at the entire district, is the highest need, has the highest need, and certainly with the amount of non-taxable properties that puts an increasing strain on your taxpayers. And I think it's a discussion that I think in the long term, we're talking, the next 5-10 years, whether or not the system we have in place in this town is sustainable when we have so many different fire districts. Your district is being called for mutual aid to assist all over town when, technically speaking, they're not paying into those resources. So we're having a talk about regionalization, yet in many respects we haven't really assessed whether or not that's appropriate to be done in an appropriate way here in town, where we can create efficiencies that are not just sustainable for the taxpayers, but improve public safety as a whole. So I think the board's committed to that, and certainly a lot of taxpayers are too. But I think the more we talk and the more we have the opportunities to share share your experiences and your hardships, it's important. So.
Yeah, well, and you're right. If you do it, you need to make it a 10-year plan or something if there's any thought of consolidation, because nobody wants to give up their domain. And you can't blame them, and the people in the district don't want to see the firehouse next to their house closed. When we closed the old firehouse, there was a little bit of an uproar, but we had to do it what was going to be, financially best for the district. So if you do think of it, I think you need to think of it, and I told this to Mark 4 or 5 years ago, it needs to be a 10 or even a 15-year plan. And it sounds like a long time, but that's the only way you're going to get it done, if you're thinking, but, consolidation. And our district, I think, right now with the people we have, is willing to work however you or the council wants to work on something. We'd be glad to help out and get together with other fire districts for a long-term plan. We certainly have a lot of fire equipment in the town. But if you're only paying $2 million and you're getting your garbage picked up, you're not thinking, well, that ain't that bad. So just leave it alone, because you don't want that firehouse next to your housing development closed, So it's a fine line, and that's why the council really needs to be involved a little bit on the outside looking in, just for, so they can make the taxpayers aware. And I certainly don't want to think that we were trying to stick it to the town of Groton for $280,000. We have the ordinance, and that money helps our district, and I just feel it's justified that the whole tax base pay, because they're going to be using that school. And we put the ordinance in without exception, so it wasn't to get rich, it was just, it happened that way,
And my last follow-up question, maybe for the chief, in the last several years, the town and state and country has confronted the opioid crisis. And have you seen any kind of improvement in terms of the public health in town, or are you still seeing some of the same challenges?
We see it on a consistent basis, but it goes in spurts. It depends on what's going on the street and how successful the police are, and I know there's a big concerted effort, but we see it on occasion. And in the past, it's not as bad as it was maybe a year ago, but that could come back at any moment, because we've seen it happen where we'll do a stretch and then all of a sudden we start getting hit again.
And we have that huge rehab down in our district that they make quite a few calls to as well down there, down in Trails Corners, so, you know, it certainly probably is a little better now than it was 2 years ago, but.
I wouldn't say we're winning, but I would say we're starting to get the upper hand a little bit.
Yeah.
Counselor Schmidt.
Well, I just want to thank you all for coming, because it is a very important contribution that you make to all the citizens of Groton. And I did think that ever since Chief Winsky came, that has been a tremendous turnaround in morale and in functioning of the department. I think that we're grateful for that and for the equipment that you've been able to get provided for Paquonic Bridge. But I did want to make sure that Councilor Baumgarten realizes that every one of our fire districts contributes to community aid. Whenever anything happens, they are all there. They're not holding back at any point. And particularly even the sub-base fire department is a critical part of our entire community. So that they're all making a really big contribution to everything that happens here. And we owe each one of them a great deal. I know that the Mystic Fire Department, the old Mystic, has rebuilt many of their buildings, and that they have set up a situation where you're able to go in and get oxygen. All of the fire departments can go there, and they have different things that they contribute. So I think we're all making an effort to contribute to the entire community. But I do thank you.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of mutual aid going both ways.
Any other counselors? Counselor Aubry.
First of all, I want to tell you that Joe and I both own buildings in your district, so you get a little of our tax money too. I think Joe forgot that, but it's all right. He's right by the fire station. What is the mill rate now for the fire district?
Six.
Six one.
Six flat.
It's 6 flat, I believe, yeah.
You know, I've always believed that your area is the area that should not be having that tax. I couldn't agree with you more, that this entire town should be carrying the burden that you have. We are not the, we're the middle America that you're working with. And I think that this mill rate, I'm sure you are doing everything you can to keep it where it is, but it's way too high in comparison to other parts of the town. And I hope in the future maybe the council can work towards coming up with something that might help a little bit, because we really do need to. I had another little question. I think I asked it last year, but I'll ask it again this year. Why can't there be some sort of a response when you know somebody calls regularly? You know, they have a problem, and it's not unusual for them to call for assistance. Why does it still have to be everything going to it? Yeah.
Well, I'll answer that.
Okay.
You'll find that the dispatch centers have a mandated program that they have to follow. It's called EMD, which is Emergency Medical Dispatch. And when they're talking to you on the phone, when you call for help, they're asking specific questions off a sheet. And when you get to a certain point, it triggers certain responses automatically. And that's a mandated program, and that's what our dispatch center follows, and they don't deviate from it. So it's not like, one of the things they'll do is they screen the call. There was back a few years ago, we were having a problem with improper screening. So we were going to a lot of calls that maybe weren't necessary, but once the EMD is instituted, that reduced a lot of that duplication. I mean, even though the numbers are the same and consistent in our responses, we're busier than we used to be. But it's being managed better, because if it was the way it was, we'd probably be doing 3,000 calls. But they do an excellent job of screening calls from the dispatch center. And it's important to understand that A lot of the way that we respond, most of the way we respond is mandates that we have. It's not like I can say, I don't feel like going there anymore. So
Oh,
it's-
no, I'm not
yeah.
suggesting that.
No, I understand.
No.
Yeah.
God, no, I might need
Yeah.
you.
Well, and I can tell you, when I started on the board, that's just how I felt. Why are we sending these, and why don't we rip these fireboxes down when, you know, the pull boxes? And then when you get in and you start doing the research and how much it's gonna take to pay somebody to take all the wires down, and you got them underground, and can we maintain these boxes cheaper than taking them down? And when you find out and you've done all of the ins and out research, it's a different picture you look at. You know, I went in with, let's cut all these medical calls, we don't need to be going, and you change your attitude, and once you find all of the facts out, and it just there's so much to grasp and learn, and all the regulations and why they have to do this and that. So I can tell you that I went in with that attitude, we should cut it all back, and then now I'm at the point where let's make it more efficient and still serve, you know what I mean? And I think our guys have done that as well. You know, you try and keep the overtime cost down when you're fixing the fireboxes and things like that, you know, so you have to get the end result, what it's gonna cost, so.
If you could expound on, maybe, I know you're sitting there, I'd like you to have some input on it. Tim has also been an instructor at the Career Academy in Windsor Locks, so he has a good grasp on the understanding as to why things are done in the mandates. A lot of it has to do with liability, too. We have a responsibility to make sure that the appropriate number of personnel are on the scene at a certain time within so many minutes. And these are all mandates that people don't know about that we have to maintain every day. So it may look like duplication or something, but it's not really, you know, so if you'd like to.
Just to kind of answer a little bit on your other question too, I'm just speaking on behalf of the Buckhorn Bridge Fire Department. We have five members on duty, 4 firefighters and 1 captain. And our captain's the duty officer. If calls do come in and we have extra information on the dispatch, the duty officer regularly will address that and adjust the response accordingly. Sometimes a call that would normally have 3 pieces of fire apparatus going to it, with the extra information, he may bring it down to only 1 engine going with traffic to go and check it. So it is something that we have been addressing for a long time, and not being in the service, I can understand where that would be kind of confusing. The other issue, and I think it's for not just in Groton, but all towns Groton size, fire apparatus, an engine, let's say in a city, normally is going to have 4 people on it. For us, we have 2. So for us to get the 4 people or the 4 bodies on scene, we have to send 2 pieces of fire apparatus. And NFPA standards are based on how many people we can get. For just a small structure fire, the NFPA standard is 15 firefighters on scene within the first 10 minutes. We have 5. We're reaching all the way over to New London to get 4 more people, 5 more people coming over, just because we don't have the people, we don't have the bodies. New London's doing the same with us. We're going over to help them. Sub-Base is coming into us. Old Mystic comes to help us. We go to help Old Mystic. We are so interdependent on each other right now that the fire services themselves have grown very, very tight-knit. And this was told to me by some very, very smart fire chiefs. It's all about public safety. And truly, that's what it is. Unfortunately, you may see a whole bunch of fire trucks lined up on a street. We don't necessarily need that fire truck there, and it may seem like a lot of waste of money by bringing that big fire truck there, but it's the 2 people that are on that fire truck. That's what we really, truly need. So I can understand it does look like that, but it's the way that the system is built right now. Unfortunately or unfortunately, it's the most efficient way for us to do it. But we do address that. For us, we're at 2,200 runs a year right now, 2,200 calls for emergencies. Recently, we've seen car accidents and severe car accidents on a rise. I couldn't tell you why. My guess would be probably text messaging and driving, but that would just be a 30-year professional guess on that. Definitely, the opioid crisis has truly been a strain on us. There was 1 week where we were administering Narcan 2-3 times a day. So it has been a toll on us. As far as the extra work that the firefighters are doing, we're doing a lot more pub ed. We're going out to the schools. We're doing stuff with the community night out, just coming up in August, the fall festival, the parades. Unfortunately, our ladder truck was out of service this weekend, so it wasn't in the July 4th parade, so I apologize for that. But along with all of that, we have OSHA mandated trainings, which is roughly 60 hours a year. We have NFPA, which are standards. The difference between OSHA is OSHA is a law, NFPA is a standard. What's the real big difference? OSHA is going to fine you and potentially jail. NFPA, if you're going to civil court, they're going to use those standards against you. It's really the big difference. It's a very fine line sometimes on where we work and how we do that. So between OSHA and NFPA, we're looking at about 200 hours a year of continuing training that we're doing, from anywhere from EMT refresher to just structural firefighting to hazmat to being able to wear an SCBA to your physicals and such. So hopefully that answers a little bit on the question or two on the apparatus. I do understand what you're saying on that.
Thank you.
Truly.
Yeah, the other thing with the apparatus, we have 2 men on each truck, and we send them because we need the men there, but we also send the 2 trucks because we don't want to put 4 guys on one truck and then have another call and that truck be back at the station. And then the captain will decide who's going to go where. If you got an emergency on the other side of the district, they might send 1 truck there. And so you kind of got to bring the 2 trucks. And so if we had 8 men per shift, it would be a wonderful thing. Everybody would be happy then, but except the taxpayers, because we couldn't afford to pay them.
Councilor Franco.
The council has previously discussed the pilot fund money. And there was some kind of talk about how it's distributed between the different districts. Do you think the way it's set up right now is the proper way or the best way or fairest way?
I can't speak for the other departments, only that, the only thing I could tell you is that 72% of all the non-taxable properties are in Pequannock Ridge for the whole town. That's all I would say on that. As far as, I don't think something should be taken from somebody, but maybe a better look at, the numbers, because everybody has their needs, and I certainly wouldn't want to say I want his money or anything like that. That's not what we would be saying, but I think if you look at the figures, and I believe the deputy here has a map of, an updated map of all the non-taxable properties within our district, and he can give it to you when we leave, and you can take a look at it.
One thing about the pilot money, the pilot money is payment in lieu of taxes. The fire district, we're the only ones that have an actual responsibility to state properties. The town doesn't plow the state roads. The town police don't have the jurisdiction on the airport, let's say. But if there's a plane crash, it's ours. If there's a building fire, it's ours. We're the ones that are actually have to legally give the service to
Yeah, it's by
to the state
statute. We're
agencies.
the only municipal mandated organization to respond to state properties.
And that includes Bluff Point.
9 miles and 95.
The airport, 9 miles and 95. The National Guard facility at the airport. That's the Southeast Tech School. We have to provide protection, have to provide service to them statutorily.
John, how did you do with pilot money from the state this year? Did you get the same amount?
I do know we had requested from our representatives, we would like to be funded in full. That was one of our requests that I had asked John for.
One of the things, I was approached by Joe Delacruz regarding trying to get some reimbursement for 95. Years ago, we could fill out a form and send it to the state, and you put your documentation, you were out there or whatever, and then there seemed to be a little bit of abuse by some across the state. But the difference is, when you have a volunteer organization, they go out there, they can stay there, there's no labor cost. We go out there, when the wires came down, we lost power. That was unbelievable that night. We were out there for 17 hours. We had multiple people out, and we had multiple calls at the same time. We were overwhelmed, and we used a lot of our neighboring agencies. And the problem is, both lanes were shut down, north and south, and they ended up in Groton. What compounded that, there was no power for the traffic lights. Just getting anywhere was out of control. But all that time that we spent out there, we spend hours out on the highway, and we get absolutely no compensation. You know, if we're tied up there, I have to call people back in, and that costs us money. So there's overtime involved, but those are things, that's why we're there. We provide the service, and we have to make it work. But it does, on occasion, have a big impact on our budget. You know, just those. So any help we could get from the state or anybody else certainly would help in those instances.
Just to give you an idea, on 95, we're from the Gold Star Bridge north to where Flanders Road goes over the highway in between 88 and 89. And we run mutual aid and aid together from the bridge all the way up to exit 89, north and south, down to the highway.
And just one more question, just out of curiosity. I had heard, well, you know, the police in Groton are on the state radios now. And I was wondering if that was something that you wanted to get on as well.
Well, we would love to, but the cost is, just for the equipment, is very expensive. Plus, we received, the radio system we have now was on a grant. So it's too soon for us to look for federal money because we did that not too long ago. So it's got to go a certain time period before you can reapply. And the portable radios, and how many do we have? 25? Something.
Yeah,
But anyway, they're over $4,000 a piece because of the frequency. I mean, it's a lot of money. So for us to change, that would be radios in the trucks, the cars, the portables. It's astronomical.
Great system.
It is a
they're
great
very
system.
happy with it, yeah.
Wish we could, but financially.
In the future.
The problem is too, we don't want to do it piecemeal. So when we did the first radio system, everybody did it and went together on it. Now, if we go, well, what about the rest of them? You know, so, and then it creates a communication issue. There's so much of a bandwidth difference that we can't talk back and forth, and that wouldn't work. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
how many men per shift, or how many firefighters per shift do you have?
We have 5 total.
5
Yeah,
per shift.
Yep. 2 on, we run 2 on the ladder truck, 2 on the engine, and the captain. And then myself or the deputy, if we have a major incident, we automatically come in.
I just want to say that I highly value the Pequannock Bridge Fire Department. I think you guys do an amazing job, and you do have an awesome responsibility because you have our schools, you have our businesses, you have to service one of the busiest roads with Route 1 and 95. So I do think that the pilot money should definitely be coming back to you. It reminds me somewhat of the situation that New London is in because they have so much non-taxable property within the city of New London, and they find themselves in a similar predicament. So I'm in favor of maintaining the pilot funding coming back to you, and perhaps looking at the formulation. I'm not sure how it was done. I know it's been the same for many, many years. I'm not sure of the formula that was used to come up with that original distribution amongst the fire districts, but it's something that I would not be opposed to taking a look at again. So,
Councilor Marasic did a lot of research on that for us, and I think, you know, what we're saying here is we really don't want to take anything from the other districts. We want a bigger number, you know, but you don't have it to give, and I understand that, you know. It's like we're going to try and get money from the state. They don't have it to give. They can't give it to us, you know. So we're doing the best we can with what we have. If we can get more, that's a wonderful thing. And we will work with you if you want to see how all the pilot money figures were drawn. But I think the state gave you a lot more pilot money 10 years ago than you're getting now from the state. I'm not quite sure, but I think the state number was a lot higher. So, you know, we'll be glad to do anything you want as far as working with you with the information we have. We have stacks of papers from that Marasic had done and some other people had done, so.
I've got all the information too.
Great. Yeah, I'm not saying that we can increase the pilot, but the pot of money that we do get, we should make sure that it's being distributed equitably.
Yeah, we'll be glad to, you know, help, and like John said, he's got the paperwork, so.
Great.
We'll do it, whatever we can, you know, but,
Right.
Again, we appreciate what we're getting. We just want to make you aware of the whole picture here tonight, so that you got a feel for the whole department and what our taxpayers are facing, you know, for mill rate.
And I think it was valuable that you came forward publicly and explained about the school fees, because that was a question that was on a lot of people's minds. So thank you for explaining that. And unless there are other questions from the council, thank you very, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. And how about the fire training area up behind the annex here? How is that going for you all?
Perfect timing. We had a meeting today.
We had a meeting today. I believe it's going on August 13th to the Planning and Zoning Board. That's the hopeful date. It's a huge event. It will definitely make the town safer. All the fire departments will have the ability to go and train back there, along with the ambulance and the police department, where we can start working together a little bit more. Recently, talking about the times, we have bulletproof vests and helmets. When I first started in the fire service, if you ever told me I was going to be purchasing bulletproof vests and combat helmets for firemen, I would have told you you're crazy, but we've been doing a lot of training with the police department, the regional police departments, being prepared for that. God forbid that it ever happened. So it's really important for us to be able to work together. We have certain skills that the police are interested in learning, and so we can be able to do that back there. And the mandated trainings that we have, it's just so very difficult to be able to get everyone to do that, and it's very, very important. It's very important for us to be able to have that, and it's just going to be a huge, huge thing for us.
So you're gonna actually have fires back there? Like it used to be, you found an abandoned house and somebody would allow you to train in
Right.
it.
Yeah. Those days are long gone now.
Right.
Yeah. Now we're using pallets and bales of hay in concrete buildings, and it's not very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Old Mystic have some specialized burn trailers that are made from a vendor. Very clean burning, doesn't put off the toxic smoke. We're looking at doing it when no one is here in the building at first. To be quite honest with you, we've had a lot of talks, and I don't see there being an issue. We burn at the Fire Academy less than half the distance away, with a much bigger burn building to the educational side of the academy, and it's never affected. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but obviously we want to make sure that everyone's comfortable and is okay with it. I mean, that's what we want to be, play nice or work well together. But yeah, there's some burn trailers. There's a propane vehicle that you can do a car fire. It's all propane, so it's clean burning. It's glorified gas grill. It doesn't give off anything toxic. We have a water system for trapping the water that goes off that will have to get pumped out, so there'll be no pollution to the wetlands or anything. No hazardous materials are going to be back there stored or anything like that. Just the vehicles will come in. We'll be able to do ladder drills, carification drills. It's a huge thing. And definitely when we do get it up and running, hopefully, it'd be great to have the counselors come back. We can show you around and see what it's all about. I can also extend to you to bring up to the Fire Academy. There's where we brought up local representatives to go through the Fire Academy to see what that's all about as well, and I'd be more than happy to offer that to anyone here and bring them up there to see that as well. It's a very neat, unique experience, so if anyone's interested in that.
And by the way, we have a ride-along program, so if any of you'd like to ride along someday, you'd have a first-hand experience of what it's like. So.
Well, thank you very much. Again, we appreciate your service.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming out tonight and talking to us about this. And And I think if Mr. Burke could send along the information you have, the historical information, that would be helpful. Thank you. On the pilot.
I don't know if you want all of it. I'll try to find some. It's like, you know.
Oh, it's a big, like, I guess Rich did his homework, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And you're
thank
always
you.
welcome to come to our meeting second Thursday of every month, and we have it at the senior center, usually in one of the small classrooms, unless we're having our annual meeting.
Right.
And we get a bigger room, but
What time is
7
it?
o'clock,
7
second
o'clock?
Thursday.
And you're welcome to come by the firehouse anytime. Please do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a request for a recess for 5 minutes, so we're going to recess for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry. We are on item 5D, 2019-32-3 TIF Master Plan Downtown Route 1. This is on page 13, and we are on Councilor Heed, please.
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend a resolution to approve the downtown Groton TIF District and TIF District Master Plan. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Heed, seconded by Parker. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services.
Deb Jones.
Last week, we had the public hearing on this matter. Only comments brought up one member of the public and myself. The only changes we're actually proposing to make to the plan at this point is, as referenced in the public hearing, just addressing the fact that our Economic Development Commission is now our TIF Advisory Committee, as well as inserting the new mill rate that was just adopted this past year. Other than that, I think if anyone has any questions, you know, the council will be adopting 2 items, one a TIF district as well as a TIF district master plan.
Thank you. Councilor Franco?
Since the fire department was just here and we're talking about the tax incremental financing, this will not affect the fire district tax whatsoever, is that correct?
This is for the town's tax.
All right, just confirming.
Correct.
This is, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this particular item? Councilor Obrey?
I'm just going to say, I think we've had a great explanation of it, and we've gone over most everything, and I think everybody feels pretty comfortable with it at this point.
Councilor Baumgart?
So kind of looking ahead, when the dollars start flowing into the, into the district, what are some of the projects that you kind of envision the district spends its money on?
So there's initially there really won't be a lot of dollars flowing into the district. It's not until we start getting those new projects, or as year 2, once this district has been adopted and assessments start changing, if they start going up, a minimal amount of money will start accumulating within that TIF district fund. It's not until we start having larger funds or projects actually moving forward, privately financed projects, that would then start necessitating and driving some of those projects. So whether it's streetscape improvements, sidewalk improvements, other things within the area. Something that the Planning Commission had mentioned within their recommendation on the project was looking at and doing a Route 1 kind of corridor or master plan for the area to help identify what are the projects, what areas can we start combining curb cuts, things along those lines. So there is a whole list of projects within the TIF district master plan, and once money starts accumulating within that account and when those private projects start happening, we'd actually be coming to the council to talk to all of you about, here are the projects that we could start doing depending on the amount of money and financing that's there. You would have to conceptually approve us moving forward with those projects, and then the money would have to be allocated through the normal budgetary process.
And as you were developing kind of conceptually the TIF district, especially, so let's use the downtown TIF district, for example. How did that inform the rewrite of the zoning regulations?
Hand in hand. So the area of the TIF district is also the area of our new mixed-use town center zone. So an area that we're looking to direct a lot of new density and development, a much easier process for doing that within that zoning district.
Well, thank you for your collective work, and looking forward to supporting this.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of 2019-32 TIF Master Plan Downtown Route 1, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are at 9 counselors. We are on to, thank you very much. Are you staying for the plastics as well? So we are on to Councilor Overy for 2019-2821 Single-Use Plastic Reduction Ordinance on page 14. No motion was made in advance of this item. We need to determine the course of action, and I believe we received an email from Councilor Heed, or was it from the manager?
It was for me.
Okay.
And the idea of the discussion was just to, you know, if I make a few proposed items and if everybody's on board to move forward, not as a final written ordinance, but just as ideas to be looked at. So that was the purpose of the discussion. And then to go on to like a timeline, basically I went to the Conservation Commission and they are proposing having a public education and outreach in September where they would utilize maybe some space at Fitch High School or something. And they'd like to get some of their, the people who participated in the surveys who wanted to contribute, like time, professional abilities, all that. They'd like to do some like presentation boards, maybe some handouts, and have them in the lobbies of the schools or the libraries to sort of promote the event, and then have the public education in September. So the thought was that we should be able to have them, give them a draft proposal for a plastics reduction ordinance. And then there's nothing that says, like I said, that that is the final document. In fact, you'd have some give and take with the public, and you'd ask, you know, they could have like a little card that would say what you want to add to it, what you want to subtract from it, what else would you want to do. So if, in my email, I sent it to you in advance so that you would know where I was thinking. I basically proposed 5 things. One, ban plastic bags at the checkout. Those are the single-use plastic bags. Ban plastic straws except for special needs. Ban styrofoam cups. And then ban the plastic stirrers for coffee. For example, there are wooden stirrers, so there's something readily available. And then the idea that an ordinance would typically go into effect within 6 months. So they recommended keeping it at 6 months. So additional questions that could be considered with a paper bag. A lot of the organizations that I've spoken to, Groton Conservation Advocates, for example, they recommend charging 5 or 10 cents for a paper bag at the checkout counter, which is optional, but several other communities are considering doing that very same thing. So I have a list. I can put all this in the minutes. And of course, that's an option. Another one would be to encourage companies to ask if people wanted plastic utensils rather than just tossing them in the bag. That might be going too far. I think that's a little detailed, personally. But it was something that an individual mentioned to me they'd like to see it in there, so I thought I'd mention it. And then the final question, I think Councilor Parker mentioned it last time, is who would enforce it? Would it be the police? Would it be, I don't know, the fire district? You know, who would enforce it? And I was talking to John about it, and I think you had some ideas on that one.
Yeah, and I know the planning staff has had some discussions, and they do believe the blight enforcement officer could likely take that on, though they reserve the right to come back if it becomes overwhelming to discuss further.
Yeah, so again, this isn't necessarily to say it's the final document, but I wanted to basically get a consensus if anybody objected to any particular item, or if we could say, go ahead to the town staff, go ahead and write this ordinance as it is as a proposal, and let the Conservation Commission design their public comments and education around it, with the idea that we can always make adjustments later. And this is not a final document by any stretch.
Councilor Parker?
Did we originally have styrofoams on that?
We did not. What we originally had on it was plastic silverware, but the more I looked into it, it seemed like plastic silverware, there aren't enough alternatives to it that are readily available, or they're very expensive. Like they have the edible ones, they have the rice ones, you know, and you don't want to make people have to bring actual silverware when they go to the store.
My other question is about the 5 cents or 10 cents. We're going to ask the stores to charge the people. Is that going back to the store? Is that going to go back to the town?
That's actually a huge question. The idea behind it is that you would encourage people not to just switch from plastic to paper, which has a bigger carbon imprint. What you would be doing is encouraging people to adopt reusable bags. So go to the store with reusable bags, or if you're at CVS and you buy one item, don't use a bag, you know, you're going to pay 5 or 10 cents for it. Just walk out and put it right in your car. Not to pick on CVS, I go there all the time. But that being said, it was a thought. And then if you go into who collects it, it could be prohibitive to add that to, like, who's going to collect it, how do you account for it? It becomes a little bit messy. So it's my opinion, you know, I like the idea in several towns, including Bloomfield, Brantford, Bridgeport, Darien, East Hampton, for example. They're all working on similar kinds of bans, but Westport, Greenwich, Mansfield, Hamden, Stonington, Washington, and Fairfield County all want to charge for paper bags. Oh, sorry, those are no fees. Weston, Sanford. Anyways, there are several. Like I said, I'll pass this around, get it in the minutes. Several are charging for paper, several are not. I just think there are too many questions in my mind, so unless...
Do you know where those fees are going for the ones that are looking at charging?
I don't know that. I've heard several communities that charge for the paper bags. They just give it back to the store. It becomes an optional thing for them, which really comes down to, does the store even want to bother enforcing it? So, you know, I left it out of my 5 items I wanted to propose because I think it's a bridge too far, so to speak. But I wanted to throw it out there because it is something that people are talking about.
Okay, we have Councilor Franco, Baumgartner, and then I wanted to speak as well.
So as I'm looking at the list, I believe we started off with plastic bags was on the list, and straws. Styrofoam cups seem to be new. That's replacing the plasticware. The article I read today, and I believe it was from you, Mr. Reiner. Was there an article you sent out?
Maybe a few days ago?
Okay.
Yes.
Even if you go to the cardboard cups like Starbucks uses, they still line it with some kind of plastic, and that's just as bad, trying to get rid of that as well. So it's not really biodegradable either. So I don't know if Styrofoam cups has a alternative that's readily available and would replace it right now. Although the Styrofoam takeout containers, I thought were discussed at one point, the one-time use takeout containers, which there are numerous different options that people can use and replace those readily, easily, and I think affordably. The plastic stirrers, I mean, I think the wooden option is fine. I think you would have to specify that they're coffee stirrers because there are liquor stirrers as well. And I believe 6 months might be enough, maybe enough time. I'm not sure. The styrofoam cups, though, I think that's a hard one for me to say, and I know it's a horribly polluting item, but I don't think there's an alternative right now.
Well, and the reason I threw that one on there, if you remember when Scar came and talked to us, I asked him, he's in the disposal and the trash business, what would the top things be for you to get rid of? And he said cups, and he didn't say the styrofoam food. In addition, it isn't so much that the, like in my mind, I'm not picking up the styrofoam packages from fast food restaurants or whatever. When I'm walking down the street, I'm picking up styrofoam cups all the time.
Right, but
you know, so it's not being thrown away properly, and that's what's ending up in the rivers and the woods and in the ocean.
Right, I understand that, but I think it's also about reducing these things. It's not just about the litter aspect of it as well. And I don't think styrofoam cups, and even if you go to the paper cups, I don't think there's a good alternative to one, which if you had the takeout, there is an alternative, and then you'd be reducing the styrofoam.
Councilor Baumgartner.
Well, I agree. The best way to mitigate pollution on our streets is to refuse, to say no to the plastic bag. You know, when somebody mentioned CVS, when we're picking up our prescriptions or, you know, a bag of chips, you don't necessarily need a bag of chips, you know, a bag for your bag of chips. So, but you know, last week, I went for a walk, actually a run with my girlfriend. She went for the run. I stopped halfway through, and I ended up picking up a ton of plastic on the side of the road. Most principally, the styrofoam, pieces of styrofoam cup. Won't mention any of the retailers, but it's safe to assume that many of these cups are the fast food chains, and you see the straws, you see the plastic cups, you see nip bottles, and so you really need to remind our neighbors to throw these items into the trash because they really do pollute our wetlands, our Long Island Sound, and we can do a lot better at that. So, I'm fully supportive of what you already have, what you've introduced, but I come from the point of view that it's never enough. So, during the public education process, I really think we ought to look at, expanding a ban on other styrene products because they do leave a very terrible impact on our environment and public health. In addition, there will be a question about the fee on a plastic bag in addition to a paper bag, and I think we really need to consider that, in large part because it does deter folks from using the paper bag and will incentivize them to start using reusable bags that they can bring from their home. Lastly, I think we need to consider a time that is the enforcement time should be different than the date that the actual ordinance goes into effect. And I say that in large part because I think some of the concerns Councilor Parker has raised and many other councilors have raised about giving the time to business owners and to educate them on the ordinance and why it's going into effect, and preparing them to wean themselves on the system that they've only known. And so I think we owe it to them, and I think that should very much be considered once we kind of get a little deeper into the language. But we've come a long way since we first started the discussion, so just want to also publicly acknowledge Councilor Haid for taking the lead on this.
Likewise, thank you for all your work you've done on this and for your outreach to the Conservation Commission and to Groton Conservation Advocates. They've been in frequent contact, supporting, providing information, and it's a good community effort that you've undertaken, so thank you for that. I certainly support what you have outlined here, what Councilor Haid has outlined here, and I support moving ahead at this point. This is not necessarily the final draft, but in order to meet the timeline that the Conservation Commission wanted to be able to do public information in September when school started again, we need to start this now. We can't keep delaying it. We can work out the bugs as we're going here. As new information comes in, we can feed it to staff, feed it to the Conservation Commission. But I support moving ahead with this. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Councilor Aubrey.
I think, you're right that we need to move forward with this, but I would ask the councilors, before we talk about this again, that each one of us talk to a business that's going to be affected by it and see what their feeling is. I don't think we've done that, and I think it would be a good idea if we did. We all go places where it's going to be affected, and if the manager or the owner happens to be there, talk with them, and then we'd have the other side of the story.
Well, we have just last evening we were at an establishment and the owner has been experimenting with his solution to plastic straws. And I commented, oh, this is a different different paper straw, and he's playing with it and trying to figure out what's going to work best for him. So he's very comfortable moving ahead with it, and he is even looking at alternatives to his takeout containers to get rid of the plastic lids. And he's been on his own time researching and figuring out what would maintain the quality of his food, but protect the customer when they were carrying the food home and protect the environment. So I have spoken to one particular business owner, but I'd be more than happy to speak to others. I know there are other local businesses that have already moved away from the styrofoam clamshells and are using the cardboard clamshells. So there are alternatives out there, and I think it's our duty to take the lead on this and to try to make a difference, one raindrop at a time. Councilor Parker and then Zepari.
So we are only talking about food establishments? Is that where we're going with this? What businesses are we
Food
affecting?
establishments and retail stores.
So
Only like the
grocery-
checkout counter at a grocery store, not the plastic where you go into the store and you put your chicken meat into a plastic bag or something. It's only the checkout counter.
Let me finish the question. I got that part, but eventually, and my concern about this going down the road is how far do we take this besides the businesses? A person can go in the store and buy plastics in the store and styrofoam in the store. How far does this ordinance, will it go eventually? Because we can come back and rewrite it. My concern is how do we get people to change their minds about buying stuff, which in turn affects the businesses that are selling the stuff, which in turn affects the businesses that make the stuff. So I'm all for this, but I'm also looking at the cycle that we're still in, because you got to get all the businesses in the United States to try to figure out their mind. So how do you do that? Because us to say, okay, the businesses can't do styrofoam, they can't do plastic straws, they can't do plastic stirrers, but they're being sold. So where's the line drawn? And I don't think anybody's ever answered that question for me.
Well, I think if I could.
Councilor Zepari, are you okay if
I'll
Councilor
yield
Heed goes?
to, Conrad.
Councilor Heed.
Right, just quickly, this is only a start. It's not intended to save the world. It's just to, kind of get people to start thinking about it and to start the educational process. Like when I was a kid, I remember in the 70s watching that owl that used to, run around and sing, give a hoot, don't pollute. And it's in my head. I can't get rid of it. I don't know what happened to him though. So it's just to bring it back. That makes sense.
So we have Mr. Reiner and Councilor Zepari both wish to speak to you.
I was just going to say, you're all invited to my house Saturday morning for a brief social meeting, and I'm asking you each to bring your own porcelain cup and your own porcelain plate. We will serve refreshments, but we will not have plastic silver. We will not have plastic cups, and we will not have plastic plates.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Reiner.
So to address what Councilor Parker was stating is I think this is one piece, but a much larger piece is what the Conservation Commission is looking to start doing. It's that public education piece, making people aware of the impacts of if they use a styrofoam cup, if they throw it out the window of their car, where it ends up, but do they really need a styrofoam cup over their plastic cup to prevent the drip from the condensation that they then use for 20 minutes and then it goes in the garbage and it takes 100 or hundreds of years to break down. So getting people to start thinking about those behavioral changes, that is a much bigger thing that, yes, think globally, act locally, we can all start doing, whether it's you at home, instead of having plastic containers, you buy the glass Pyrex containers, or you have, things that you start doing on your own. And if each one of us starts making some of those actions moving forward, that starts to make a difference. And just knowing what options are out there that are available. It takes a little time, a little effort to research some of those things, and I think that's something our Conservation Commission can help us with. I mean, I know in my household, with 2 younger kids that are growing up, we have stainless steel lunch bot containers, so that nothing that my kids use for school lunches is ever in plastic. It's in stainless steel, and they've lasted for years. So we've probably prevented hundreds of plastic baggy containers from going into the landfill. What other things can each of us do like that and take action on our own?
Which
I think,
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
All right, Counselor Schmidt hasn't spoken, then we'll go to Parker and Zepari.
Well, we had thoughts along the same line as Councilor Parker and Juliet Parker. And I thought, just this afternoon, I was at my art class. In the middle of the class, we have a break. It's a 3-hour class. And we have coffee in styrofoam cups. We have dessert in plastic dishes. And they also have plastic forks to eat everything with. And how far do we go with this? If you go into the grocery store, you see whole aisles filled with plastics, filled with styrofoam. And that, I think, are we just concerned with the litter, or are we concerned with the actual product itself?
Counselor Parker and then Zepari.
I understood where you're going with it, and there's concerns about people not being able to afford things. And please, don't get me wrong, buying a lunchbox for your child, a metal lunchbox, some households cannot do that. So they may be using a plastic container and stuff like that. So how far are we going to eventually tell people, hey, stop trying to use that? But that's not up for us. We can suggest it, but they're not going to change their minds about using stuff. So it's a big concern. I've said this before when we're thinking about this. I'm for having a plastic ordinance to a degree, but how far do we take it?
I'm sorry, Counselor Obrey hasn't spoken, so we'll go to Counselor Obrey and then Counselor Zepari.
To your question, to your statement, though, I think that probably the best way, one of the things we might think about doing on the educational side of it, is if you educate the kids, they'll take it home and they'll make their parents do it the right way. You know, there's a lot, you know, I've watched my grandchildren talk to their parents about smoking. I've watched my grandchildren talk to my children about other things that they learned in school, and they stopped because it was just a refreshing situation for the child to come home who's had the class and then shares it with their parents. And I think that's probably one of the biggest ways you're going to educate people.
Just one more question. We're only doing one course, right? One class?
No. Okay, let's go to Counselor Zepari. He's been waiting.
I think it's back to what everybody's been saying, what you just said, Leanne. It goes back to getting the individuals to change the way they operate. And if we're going to do that, we have to impress on people the crisis that we're facing environmentally with the plastic that's piled up and is causing such a risk to our environment that the sea life is in jeopardy. And I really think we have to move ahead, and we do have to change the way we do things. And the only way we're going to do it, it's that raindrop thing again. It's the individuals have to learn that what they're throwing away is harmful, and they have to learn to change the pattern of where they're, of the way they carry their food and serve their food. And I really think that it's only through education and through getting people aware of the crisis that we're in that they're going to change the way they do things. I also would observe that the beautification committee picked up thousands of nip bottles that people threw away, and we've long had an anti-littering campaign going, but there's so many people that are so difficult to reach. But we can't stop trying. We have to really push the education portion of this.
So Counselor Parker had asked about how many presentations. We had originally planned to do one big presentation. The Conservation Commission, one of the reasons why they wanted to hold off was because they want to get into the schools and do multiple things within the schools as well. Is that correct, Counselor Hughes?
Well, they want to basically do one, but by having it in the school and having the sort of reader boards in the schools, they expect that the teachers will pick this up and carry it.
So anyone, Councilor Atwater, you haven't spoken. Did you want to have a chance to talk in this? No? So we've all had a chance to voice our opinions on this. Is there any objection to what was outlined in the email as far as trying to move ahead with this so that Conservation Commission is ready to go in the fall then? So we're all consensus to move ahead. Very good. Thank you very much. All right. We are on to, and don't move to adjourn yet because there is one other thing. Review of agenda items. I don't know that there's anything there that anyone wants to discuss. Under other business, we all received a letter today. Did you want to read it into the record?
Well, I went to the meeting, so.
Yeah, go ahead. So you all received a copy of a memorandum from the Conservation Commission.
Right, so again, this was last week, and I mentioned it in the council meeting last week during communications, but we reviewed three things in the meeting. The first thing was David Aldridge from SCARA came and did a deeper presentation on the idea of what's this composting facility within Groton. So they composed a letter, and that's what I'll read into the record for you. So it's to John Burt, Town Manager from the Conservation Commission, dated July 5th, 2019, regarding the SCARA composting opportunity, and the reference was the Town Council meeting of June 25th, 2019. It states, at the June 25th, 2019 Town Council meeting, the Council heard a presentation from David Aldridge, Executive Director of SCARA. In that presentation, David highlighted a need for a new composting site to serve New London County, and David was subsequently invited to the July 1st Conservation Commission meeting, and the topic was discussed in more detail. The Commission's conclusion was that the proposal was positively received and deserved additional consideration and study by the town. Ideally, locating the composting site in Groton would have the following benefits. 1, decrease biomass entering our landfill and burn disposal systems. 2, create high-quality compost for use by the town, our agricultural industry, and its citizens at lower costs than currently available. And 3, provide a revenue source that could be directed to additional conservation projects. And the Conservation Commission therefore requests that the SCARA composting opportunity be put on the Town Council agenda as soon as possible, with the objective to have the Council direct a study by the Planning Public Works staff with support from the Conservation Commission to determine the feasibility of siting a new regional SCARA composting operation in Groton. The study will evaluate and report back on the feasibility of executing this opportunity in a timely manner. Thank you, Bray Rafferty, Chairman, Town of Groton Conservation Commission.
Thank you. So I'm requesting that be put onto the agenda at a future meeting.
I mean, you can just do it by consensus if you want us to look at it. It doesn't have to be an agenda item.
Okay. Councilor Franco?
Do we have manpower to do this?
I don't think this is going to take, I've talked a little bit with Gary and with John. I don't think it's going to take a ton of time. There's not a whole lot of options out there. That's the feeling. So I don't think it'll take a lot of time.
Anything else on this particular item? Councilor Baumgartner and then he.
Well, mention was composting, but it is somewhat of a complicated system. If you wanted to have an anaerobic digester, which actually breaks down the solids and the waste and would turn it into the compost. One of the byproducts is biogas biogas or a biofuel. So that's something we should consider, especially as I'm considering the long-term transitioning to renewable energy sources instead of relying on fossil fuels. And so, I hope we consider that, especially the staff considers that, and especially in terms of siting. So this is exciting.
I think a lot of it's going to be directed by SCARA in terms of what their vision is for what facility they need, and our part would be more looking at the appropriate properties or locations for that facility.
Councilor Heath?
Yeah, so just to clarify, they want to partner with the town to find a site, And then they actually talked about the difference between anaerobic versus aerobic. And the system they were looking at, SCAR was looking at, because if you have an anaerobic system, you tend to have certain smells that are, you have to have it on a big piece of property, so it's away from residences and all that. But if you pump air through it, you get an aerobic digestion, which relieves you of the smell because, well, I don't know about the science. I'm not a scientist. But we could certainly mention it to them as another option for them to consider. But they were looking at aerobic, just to be clear.
Aerobic. Anyone else? Okay, so is there consensus to ask the town staff to work with SCARA to find a potential site? Any objection to this? No? Okay, great. Any other business? Seeing none, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Schmidt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Perry. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are adjourned at 9:40. Thank you very much.